All right, welcome to another Chameleon Media podcast. I have a special co-host today. I have Cody Blythe in the building. What up, Cody?
What's up, Will?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Uh, just keeping on.
Okay, man. Well, guys, I brought Cody in here today because he has a Facebook page dedicated to the '90s. It's called Growing Up in the '90s. Cody, what made you want to start that page, man?
Uh, okay, so after I graduated high school, I started kind of reliving some of the VHS tapes that I used to have from when I was a kid. I was watching some of the old, like, Batman cartoons and stuff because I was just like, I felt really nostalgic. I was just like, man, I wonder if other people online feel the same way I do when I sit here and watch this stuff. And sure enough, there wasn't nobody that did any of this. Nobody did a page like this. So I started it back in 2011. So it's been 8 years.
How many people you have following the page
As of right now,
as of right now? A
we're,
guesstimate. Give me a rough guesstimate.
I would say right now there's about 170,000.
Oh, okay. That's wow. You got a lot, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations on that page, man. It looks like you having a lot of success with it. Keep it going.
Yep.
Okay, well, I got Cody on here today because we have a guest interview today from Scott Barber, who's a filmmaker, and he's doing a documentary on Nickelodeon. And the name of the documentary is called The Orange Years, and it's supposed to be focusing on the Nickelodeon network from the 80s all the way up until 2000. And Cody's a big Nickelodeon fan, so I wanted to let him get his input, share some of his memories and share some of his knowledge with you guys. So we're going to try to dedicate this episode, even though we already have Venus de Milo on here already once, but we're going to try to dedicate this episode strictly for Nickelodeons from the 80s and the 90s. I know, Cody, you're more of a 90s guy, but I do want to put some 80s emphasis on this episode.
Yeah, we ain't gonna exclude anybody. I mean, except for the stuff that's going on now on Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother ball game, man. Oh man, but Cody, what was your first memory of Nickelodeon?
My first memory of Nickelodeon would have been anything that had to do with Rugrats. I remember I used to watch Rugrats a lot. All that. Jeez, I can't remember the original block, but I do remember Rugrats, All Real Monsters, and Doug were like on the same lineup.
So you were the cartoon guy coming into Nickelodeon.
Pretty much. I was very young in the 90s. I had at least 7 or 8 years of my childhood in the 90s. So I did watch Nickelodeon when we had it, because back then it was, some cable companies made you pay for that channel.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to watch it on my little box TV in my little playroom when I was a kid, and my earliest memory is probably going to be, I'm going to say Rugrats, because I used to watch the movie a lot too back in 95 when that came out.
Well, I'm a bit older than Cody, so my first memory of Nickelodeon was the show You Can't Do That on Television.
Man, that's old school.
Yeah, it's very old school. And just like you, we didn't have a Nickelodeon back then. It was kind of like not a full network. It wasn't even a premium channel. It was kind of like a block schedule on it was like a random channel it would pop up on, and we would only get it for a few hours.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah.
So how Fox Kids was for me, where it was only on Saturday for about 3 hours.
Now, for me, Nickelodeon, You Can't Do That on Television. It was the first show I saw on there, but I was still not a fanboy. That was the only show I was watching. I didn't get into some of the later shows like Clarissa Explains It All. There was another show I remember I used to watch on Nickelodeon. It was a show where these mannequins would come to life. I can't. Let me Google it while we're on here. Yeah,
we need to get us some fact checkers like Movie Fights does. They got on the panels and stuff like that look this up for us.
Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. I pulling it up. It was called Today's Special.
Oh, I've never heard of that actually. That must be really old because
It's old. Let me see if I can pull it up here on Wikipedia. It says it started from 1981, the year I was born, from 1981 to 1987, and it started on TV Ontario. So it was a Canadian show.
uh,
Just yeah, just like You Can't Do That on Television was a Canadian show.
most Nickelodeon shows, especially the live action ones, were Canadian. Are You Afraid of the Dark was a Canadian show as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know the story behind why Nickelodeon only hired Canadian actors. Some people might assume it was cheaper, but I have no idea. But
so that was my first memory of Nickelodeon. It was You Can't Do That on Television. Today's Special. Clarissa Explains It All. Now let's move into the 90s, your era. That's when I kind of really started gravitating more to Nickelodeon. Basically, that's when the Doug came in for me. The Salute Your Shorts. Actually, I remember Salute Your Shorts before I even saw Doug. So it was like Salute Your Shorts, Wild and Crazy Kids, Nick Arcade. So I was still more on the game show and live action shows before I bit into the cartoons.
right.
Yeah. What were you into the live action and the game shows, or not? I don't want to say live action, more the sitcoms.
As far as 90s ones go, my favorite ones to watch at the time were All That and Keenan and Kel.
Okay.
I used to watch those. Like, man, every time you heard Coolio, oh, here it goes.
This might upset you, Cody. I was not a hardcore fanboy of All That, and let me explain why before you jump on me, or any people who's listening on to this.
Where's the end button? I'm hanging up.
and look, but let me explain first. Maybe you'll give me a little bit of a leeway out. I think the reason why I was not a hardcore fan of All That is because like I was already getting older. I was like, teenager and all that. And I had already seen shows like In Living Color
and SNL, things like that.
Yeah, so I was watching more older comedy. So by the time All That came out, I've already seen shows like that, and to me, it was more of a downgrade. It was more kiddie-ish, And I'm not saying I didn't like it. I just was not a hardcore fanboy of it.
Man, if Kenan Thompson was not in All That as a kid, he would not be on SNL right now, and he's probably the best part of SNL.
Yeah, that's true. Right now, yes. Because you got to remember, when I was growing up, SNL had Eddie Murphy.
Oh yes,
Chris Rock. Yeah, Adam Sandler. It was a whole different ball game. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Chris Farley.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, Chris Farley. I wasn't there for Chevy Chase and all them. That's ahead of my time. But I yeah.
Damn, Andy Kaufman was like one of the earliest I remember watching on SNL.
Mm-hmm.
When they did I think they did some kind of like a rerun. I remember Andy Kaufman was really popular because, well, he was kind of a controversial guest. So
did you watch any of the event shows on Nickelodeon, like Double Dare, Legend of the Hidden Temple?
Yes, I used to watch Figure It Out was one of my favorites, is when they had like contestants from certain shows. Like they'd have like Kel Mitchell, and then a few members from other live action shows or something. They would be on a panel, and they would have someone coming on as guests, like kids with hidden talents, and they would have to figure out what these hidden talents are by asking questions. And they would have things like secret words of the day. If you say the secret word, then you get slimed, right? So you get these people who get slimed and stuff. I used to love watching that.
If you had to pick one episode, or not one episode, my bad, one show, like game show, like the Double Dares and all that, not all that, I keep saying all that, like in a reference, but if you had to pick one of those game shows, Nick Arcade, Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, what show did you want to be on so bad growing up?
It was always Legends, man. Legends of the Hidden Temple was such a... it's so unique in the fact that there were a lot of shows that had like a lot of activity as far as like kind of promoting a health thing. A lot of people might say they would want to be on what was that one show, Guts?
Yeah.
Guts was like super athletic. I wanted to do the fun thing, talking to the giant tiki head that was the camera. Yeah, I wanted to do Legends. I loved how cool the set pieces were and how interesting and how well thought out it is, you know. But yeah, everybody wanted to be on Legends, and I'm just gonna say Silver Snakes for life. Everybody can, you know, buy.
For me, it was Double Dare, and the reason for me it was because like I would see so many people fail the obstacle course at the end, and me and my brother, we were both in the sports. You know, we both grew up playing baseball, football, basketball, and my brother was older than me, so I felt like if me and my brother were on that show, man, we would have destroyed it. You know, like man, I used to get so mad when I see people fail. Like, how can you not climb up that slide?
Right? Oh my God. There's some of the things that they used to do in those obstacle courses. I was just like, that's such the simplest thing. Why can't you dig into a toilet properly? There's just a flag in a hole in the toilet.
Oh yeah, man. I used to get so upset with that show, man, because I was jealous. Let's flat out say it. I was jealous. I was a hater. I wanted to get on there so bad. Another one for me. I mean, Double Dare is always going to be number one for me, but another one was Nick Arcade, and the Nick Arcade.
My boy Phil Moore.
Oh yeah, Phil Moore. Oh man, he's so awesome, man. Oh yeah, man. He's well loved out there, especially with the retro video game community, Nickelodeon fans. But the part on that show when the kids got to be in the video game behind the green screen.
Yeah, there's some behind the scenes stuff about that show. I was so upset when I found out that was, you know, fake. I actually thought it was so convincing and you would believe that it was actually a set piece, not a green screen.
Yeah, I saw that on YouTube, but you know, at that time, I wanted to be in that game so bad.
I thought it was pretty cool that they would incorporate actual video games into some of them. Like Sonic would show up at one point. I was like, damn, they got Sonic the Hedgehog over there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, getting those licensing, I could imagine, man. But still, though, man, it was a golden era of Nickelodeon. I think it's kind of hard to duplicate that now. I don't think they could ever go back to that. I see they're doing a lot of reboots.
Oh, yeah. All that's coming back in a couple of weeks on the 15th, which I'm very excited to see. I just hope that it keeps its formulaic fun that everybody loved about the original, because Kenan Thompson is actually producing this. They're bringing back some of the old cast members. So I know they're rebooting a lot of things.
Yeah, they're supposed to be rebooting all that. They already did Double Dare. I heard Are You Afraid of the Dark supposed to be coming back.
Are You Afraid of the Dark's coming back, yeah. Legends of the Hidden Temple got a movie, which wasn't that bad, actually. But I wish they'd come back with Guts. You know, them bringing back some of these sporting game shows would actually benefit them a lot, considering it would separate, because, man, it seems like Nickelodeon's block is nothing but SpongeBob now. And it's a dead or a channel that's dying in SpongeBob's life support, you know? So, I mean, you can't rely on that yellow bastard for too long, man.
Well, I have a buddy. He has 3 boys, and he says it's hard for him to find something for his boys to watch. He was like, besides Dora, you know, like there was just Diego, and he was like, his boys do not want to watch no Diego. They're just not into that stuff. And then I believe they had Paws, or is Paws Disney?
Paw Patrol, I think is what it's called, because my nephew loves that show.
Okay, and is that one Disney or Nickelodeon? I'm not sure. Okay, it's Nickelodeon. Yeah, he was saying that there really wasn't much for his boys to watch, you know, and he said like they're just more stuck into the tablets and playing video games right now. He said they're just not into TV.
A lot of people blame the downfall of Nickelodeon started with Viacom's purchase of it. Viacom has really screwed everyone out of a lot of the fun and the essence of Nickelodeon. Hell, even the Kids' Choice Awards, that I used to love watching those back then. They just are so lazy now, you know?
Yeah.
But
now, did you watch shows like Salute Your Shorts, Wild and Crazy Kids? Did you watch any of those shows?
I did not actually. I caught some parts of our Salute Your Shorts, and you know that was like the only thing. But I hated, and I know some people who are gonna watch this. I hated Hey Dude. It just seems so weird. The Dude Ranch idea is just such a boring thing. And I didn't watch Wild and Crazy Kids. I felt like I was more aimed towards the cartoons. That's as a child,
Okay.
cartoons were like the main thing. Uh,
Okay.
but I ain't really got much to say about that.
Did you ever go to a summer camp? Did you ever go to a camp like growing up as a kid?
Because in the 90s it was something a lot of people did. I went to um, one because I used to go to church. They used to do a summer retreat with your church, the
Mhm.
kids at church and stuff. So yeah, I remember doing that when I was like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, I think that's what drew me into Salute Your Shorts. I went to a camp as a kid. It was called Camp Joy. And I remember having just so much fun the first week, going to the pool, doing arts and crafts, playing basketball all the time. But I do recall though, like by the second week, oh my God, we were ready to get out of there. Like we were
Oh,
dead
okay.
tired, we were
Top thing.
exhausted. That's when we ran out of ideas and we were pulling pranks on the counselor and pulling pranks on each other. So like that, I think that's a reason why I've been like such a fanboy of Salute Your Shorts because of that experience I had at Camp Joy.
Yeah, I mean, my camp experience, if I remember correctly, even though I was very young, I had to have been like 5 or 6 years old, because they had like a preschool or whatever type thing. I remember going, and I think mine was more like the movie Holes.
Oh wow. I don't know if I would want that experience.
No, no, man, there were snakes in the thing. I remember that. I hated it. I was only there for a week though, so I'm glad that wasn't like too big of an issue. But
uh, I don't want to talk about hoes too much because I know this is a Nickelodeon episode as
yeah,
opposed
yeah,
to Disney, but I don't know why, but hoes just seems like a prison camp chain gang all mixed in together, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, that did not like seem like a fun summer camp. So woo.
No, I mean in the sense that it was a really dry. There was really there was no water, no lake or anything like that. If
Oh
anything,
wow.
I do.
Yeah, I didn't get to do any of the canoeing type stuff though. I didn't get to do any of that or archery. I don't remember doing that stuff in my summer camp. I just remember just playing sports and going to the pool a lot and just doing arts and crafts. That's all I
I just
remember.
it's funny that camp every time at least in the late 80s or in the 90s, camp was considered a source for a scary setting. So they did like Friday the 13th being the most popular, and then also Sleepaway Camp, and then Goosebumps did a whole episode, like a two-parter about a camp it being scary, and I'm just like, growing up in the 90s, I think it would have been hard for a kid to go to camp, you know?
Hmm. Now there's a movie you've been pushing on to me for quite a while, but I'm not a fan of the movie, but I am a huge fan of the cartoon that I remember
Oh
seeing it on
boy.
Nickelodeon.
Oh
Let's get
boy.
into it. You already
Okay,
know what it
wait,
is.
wait. Before we
Go
get
ahead.
wait. Okay, I'm gonna just explain to everyone before Will tries to roast me because I know he's waiting to do that. Um, that I know we talk about it's Inspector Gadget. Now, I do remember it being on Nickelodeon, and I was there when it was on Nickelodeon, and I used to watch it on Nickelodeon, and they promoted the movie on Nickelodeon. So if anything, I owe the movie at least this much for introducing me to the cartoon because I absolutely love the cartoon and I
Okay.
love the movie, but there's a huge separation gap between me and Will when it comes to this.
I'll back you up 1,000,000% on the cartoon. On the movie, you're on your own. Nah, I'm not. I don't have your back on that. You're on your own, man. I just.
Disney,
Oh
you better
God.
be releasing that movie on Disney Movie Club next or in the next couple of months, or I'm going to be on a rampage.
Is there any shows or cartoon or anything that you could think of from Nickelodeon that's like under the radar that you really loved, enjoyed, that you maybe see 1% of people out there even mentioning to this day? Is there anything you could think of?
Some people, you don't want to sit there and talk about anything that's too mainstream and like Rugrats or something.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be honest with you. If I had to choose one, and does it have to be strictly 90s?
No, no, no. It could be 80s, 90s. You could even go early 2000s if you like.
Okay, under the radar. Um, Honestly, I'm trying to think. And
Okay.
I think I'm going to say Invader Zim. It's loved by a lot of some people, but it's kind of like it's not on the top list of like Nickelodeon cartoon shows that um most
Hey,
people,
that's what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Like it's love. There's a fan base for it. It just when
it's
people think
not in the
Nickelodeon,
way
they're gonna
that
say Doug, Rugrats. We already know that. You know what I'm saying? So like I was trying to you did exactly what I asked you for. Um I don't even remember that show to be honest with you.
because it came out in the early 2000s. I do believe.
Ah, I was a grown up then. Yeah, that's too
Yeah,
late.
that it's literally about an alien trying to fit in with human society and study their what an alien does. They study humans, I guess, and he's acting like a regular kid in school. So
Okay, yeah. If it was early 2000, I was already in the military or I was out of the military. Yeah, that's way past my time
I
for
mean,
Nickelodeon.
getting away from the TV shows for a second, I do want to say in my time when Nickelodeon was really popular, and a lot of people considered 90s Nickelodeon the golden age, even though it existed way before the 90s, is
Mhm.
when they actually started implementing the sort of theme park aspect of Nickelodeon when it came to them doing Nickelodeon Studios and having an interactive experience with kids, which you don't get that now.
Mhm.
When Nickelodeon Studios was, pretty much the spotlight for Nickelodeon and children at Universal Studios, they filmed a lot of their live action shows there, like the sketch comedy ones, like all that and Keenan and Kel.
Mhm.
But man, I missed when they actually put effort into that. It really defined an era of effort from people who were just like, oh, we know what kids want. We want to be able to sit there and sell them something that they can enjoy for a lifetime. And they did that by doing a damn time capsule in 1992 that has been moved so many times, but that's like the only thing left of that Nickelodeon Studios. Now, you remember when Nickelodeon Studios existed, like the slime
Yeah,
house?
well, yeah, wasn't it in Orlando originally?
Yes, and then they moved it to California, and I think they've moved it again since then. I haven't looked into this, but
Mhm.
it's not supposed to be open and for another like 50 years or something like that.
Oh wow.
And they're just moving it all over the place. If I need to talk to you guys, I know this might be a little bit Will, but do you know what they put in that time capsule?
I have no idea. I didn't even know about this time
Okay,
capsule.
I'm going to tell you the way it was. You could watch the YouTube video because the whole ceremony's on there. But the things that they had done, like they put like a VHS copy of Back to the Future in there. Um, this was fresh after they tore down the wall between Russia and stuff like that.
Wait,
Um,
a
so they
wall in
put
Russia? Are you talking about in Germany, the Berlin Wall?
or the Berlin Wall, yeah.
Okay.
They did the newspaper article for that. They put a stick of gum in there. They put a what was the guy from Blossom, the boyfriend? I guess he hosted. He put like a hat or something like that in there.
Okay. But
Um,
Blossom wasn't even a Nickelodeon show. That's kind of weird.
yeah, it wasn't, but he was there. He was the boyfriend there. So I don't remember. I never watched Blossom. Um, And then, damn, what else they put in there? Put some gack in there, which probably opened that thing up. It probably don't smell too good. Uh, they put a lot of really interesting things in there that was decade defining, or not, the 90s. They were just like, it was the end of the 80s, start of the 90s, but they were also trying to incorporate what,
Mhm.
for the, next 70, 60, 70 years to open that thing. And I mean, it's really interesting to see that they did things like that because it's literally preserving childhood,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and it's kind of poetic in some way. So I love nostalgia. That's like my biggest thing. I live and breathe it. I'm a loser.
Nah, that doesn't make you a loser, man. If you're into that time, man, and it's kind of weird. Like today there's a rivalry between Nickelodeon and Disney. They're going back and forth, and
There
you know,
has always been
it,
a rivalry, and
it, yeah, I remember it always being a rivalry, but I was more the Disney afternoon guy.
Of course you were.
But just that block though. Only just that block. But I think overall, I was more of a Nickelodeon guy. They just had more content, you
And
know?
yeah, they actually came up with some really interesting ideas. Most of Disney's lineup was about ducks. Every time
Hey, back
was
off the
a duck
ducks now.
here,
Back
a
off the
duck here.
ducks. You know I am a duck fanboy when it comes to Disney, so back up.
All duck stuff, man. But I
Oh,
mean, I think it was they. Man, I cannot believe I have not mentioned my favorite Nickelodeon show. I mean, I'm gonna actually ask you this: what was your favorite Nickelodeon cartoon?
my favorite cartoon. I'm gonna take the easy road right now. I was a Doug guy, even when they went to Disney. I was still a Doug guy, but Ren and Stimpy's up there for me, man. I was a
Man,
huge Ren and
I
Stimpy.
haven't got to mention mine, and I cannot believe in the time that we've been talking, no one has mentioned Rocco's Modern Life. Easily one of the best.
That was your baby.
I mean, have you watched Rocco before?
Yeah, of
Oh
course.
my God, that show is so amazing. It's like Ren and Stimpy a little bit, but it's just like it's a little bit more tame, but you can still see some of the subtle things that go on in that show. Like there's an episode where Rocco's car gets impounded, and for some reason the car calls Rocco over the phone, and just he's in a chain gang, like the Slammer, where they impound in the impound lot,
Hmm.
and the car calls Rocco and says, "You got to get me out of here." And then the car, you hear creaking, like there's someone, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, Cody, man. Let's go ahead and get into this interview with Scott Barber. Uh, he's the filmmaker of the Orange Years. You got anything you want to input before we get into this interview of what you're anticipating or any knowledge you have of the Orange Years documentary?
I mean, I'm aware of the documentary. I've been following it, and I watched the trailer and stuff when they released it. My expectations from it is that it does follow as much of Nickelodeon and what most people love about Nickelodeon, as far as like the shows that people grew up with, and maybe get some behind the scenes information from how the producers and stuff like that handled such a big conglomerate like that, when it was such a big deal at the time, all the properties that they had. I would love to see some information about how Nickelodeon Studios came to be and what their process and their thought was towards it, and sort of a history behind it.
Hmm.
um, I mean, and obviously interviews with a lot of the people who were big parts of the Nickelodeon golden era of Nickelodeon, of course. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just, I hope it's a definitive 90s Nickelodeon, 80s, 90s Nickelodeon throwback to people who want to know all about their childhood.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into the interview with Scott Barber, the filmmaker of the Orange Years. All right. I'm here with Scott Barber, filmmaker, here on the Chameleon Media Podcast. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh man, it's a pleasure having you on here, Scott. Man, hey, let's jump right into it, man. The Orange Years, man. How did you come up with the idea for the Orange Years documentary?
Yeah, so the Orange Years documentary came about because me and my writing partner, Adam Sweeney, we really wanted to make a documentary. And so we were just brainstorming a bunch of ideas of what would be cool, what would people be into, and also, what could tell a compelling story. And one of those was the story of Nickelodeon. And so, yeah, basically we just kind of, that was one of the many ideas that we had. And then once we started researching them, we kind of just started doing a little basic research on each idea. That was the one that easily sounded the most interesting of them all. Once we kind of found out about Geraldine Laybourne and Scott Webb and Anne Sweeney, all of those people, that's what really said, okay, this is the one that we have to do. This is going to be not just nostalgia, but this is going to be an actual awesome story. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
Was it hard to like all the different TV shows they had to cram it into one documentary? Was that a little hard to do?
Yeah, that was the hardest part of it all. I wish that we could make a mini series out of it. We have so much,
Hmm.
and we got, we didn't know how many interviews we were going to get. We thought maybe we'd get 5, 10. We ended up with a bunch of interviews. So that was actually the hardest part in editing. How do we kind of give every show its moment, while at the same time not making it seem like we're just talking about a bunch of shows. We're actually talking about Nickelodeon, how the network grew. So it's kind of, how do we balance that? We're telling the Nickelodeon story, but we're also kind of telling the story of the shows in there as well. So that was easily the most difficult part of the whole thing. Getting the interviews was easy. Everyone and conducting the interviews, all that was super awesome, super easy. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. So yeah, that was super challenging, structuring the whole thing in post-production.
Now, what's the year's time frame of this? Like, is there a certain period, like from 80s to 2000, 90 to 2000?
Yeah.
What's the year period?
Yeah, that's basically it. The 80s and the 90s are really what we focus on. And that was something we kind of wrestled with, because some people wanted to go, it's just tough. How do we, what's the cutoff point? So really what we did is we're focusing on the work of Geraldine Laybourne. So really when she left the company in the late 90s, that's kind of when we cut it off. And, we wish we could go longer. We wish we could. There were some shows that were kind of on the verge there that we were fans of, but we really said, we got to focus on something. We got to keep this somewhat focused, not just every show that's ever been on Nickelodeon ever. So really it was Geraldine Laybourne when she left the company. And really there's a couple of things that we kind of used to market, when they quit filming shows in Florida and moved everything to California, Geraldine Laybourne quit. That's kind of where we cut it off.
Are you afraid like some people might get a little jealous out there? Like, hey, we saw 2 cast members of Salute Your Shorts, but we only saw 1 cast member of Hey You Dude on there. Are you worried about that at all?
Yeah, we were worried about that for sure. Because the thing is, we can only interview people that want to be interviewed. That was the problem, that we ran into. And also, this thing was self-funded pretty much. We did an Indiegogo and then just funded it ourselves. We're not a big production company making this at all. So, there were certain people we just physically couldn't get to. If you lived in New York or LA or Toronto, we would just kind of post up there for like a week and get as many interviews as we could. And then we did make a few just one-off trips, but if someone was, we just, sometimes we couldn't get to people. We just didn't have the budget to fly a whole film crew out for one interview. And then, some people just said no. There were, for the majority of the people that we wanted, we got. But there were some people that said, no, I don't, that's not me anymore. I want to move past my Nickelodeon days. And that was unfortunate. So, yeah, I'm sure some people will say everybody's kind of got their favorite show, and some people will say you should have focused more on this or you should have focused more on that. So we're ready for that. But, I think I'm really proud of the job that the team did. We tried to give all of the shows their glory. And also, again, since we were focusing, it's more about the history of Nickelodeon, not the history of the shows. Certain shows that maybe people aren't necessarily big fans of, but if they were important, if they helped tell the story, they got a little bit more, more screen time. For example, Hey Dude, that's not necessarily a lot of people's favorite show. We did a bunch of research. We went to all those, the Nickelodeon Facebook groups and just said, what are your favorite shows, before we even announced that we were making this movie, because we wanted to understand which shows people liked. And Hey Dude always ranked really low. And I think it's because you really have to be a certain age to remember it, because it was before Salute Your Shorts and it was before Clarissa. So people that are younger really don't remember it. And then also people that were too old at the time maybe thought it was a kid's show. So it really had, but that show is super important for Nickelodeon because it was their first show like that. Their first full-on scripted live action show. There were other ones that were kind of scripted, but a show like that with an actual cast, with an actual characters, not like more of a talk show type thing. That was the first one, so we focus on it, because it was important to Nickelodeon. It set the stage for Salute Your Shorts, Clarissa Explains It All, Kenan and Kel, all that stuff. So,
oh yeah. Now, Scott, I follow you on Facebook, and I'm gonna be upfront with you, man. I'm jealous of the "you can't do that on television" photos of you in the lockers. I was jealous, man. Flat out, gotta admit
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I was jealous of myself through a lot of this. It's crazy, the amount of people that we got to meet and the amount of cool stuff that we got to do was so awesome. The story with those lockers, you can't do that on television. That's another one. A lot of people don't remember it. If you're past a certain age, you just don't remember that show. But it's hugely important for Nickelodeon. It's where the slime
oh,
came from.
oh
And
yeah.
beyond that, it set up a lot of stuff for Nickelodeon. The slime, but also kind of the irreverence, kind of had a little potty humor in there, that we saw on Salute Your Shores, Clarissa, and all that. It set that up. And also the idea of adults kind of being dumb. You look at mom and dad on You Can't Do That on Television and they're dumb. That followed over to Ugg on Salute Your Shorts,
Hmm.
and Mr. Ernst on Hey Dude, and the parents from Rugrats. That was kind of a reoccurring theme of kids are smart, adults are dumb. And that really started there. And, that show really set the stage for the 80s and 90s. So we focus on that, quite a bit in the very beginning because it really was a super important show. And Abby Hagyard, the mom from You Can't Do That on Television, she wrote a book and she had a party for the release of her book. And she had Kevin Kubicheski and Christine McGlade, and as well as some of the directors from You Can't Do That on Television there. And she told us, "Hey, I'm going to have the lockers." So we're like, "We got to go." We
Oh
have to.
yeah.
So we flew to Canada for that, and interviewed the You Can't Do That on Television cast, and also got some cool shots of those lockers. And it's pretty cool because on the backside of those lockers, all the kids, when they would leave, would sign it. So it's all signed. Whenever a kid would kind of age out and not be on the show anymore, they'd sign it.
Oh wow. That's amazing, man. I can't lie. Like I
Really,
said, when I
and the cool, yeah.
yeah, yeah, like I was saying, when I first saw the photos, man, I cannot lie to you. It took about 3 to 4 minutes to grasp what I just saw. So I was jealous. I was like, oh my God, that's Scott Barber. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
man. Were you able to get any of the cartoons? Were you able to
it was
interview
amazing.
anyone with the Nickelodeon cartoons like Doug or Rugrats or anything like that?
So yeah, we did. We interviewed Jim Jenkins, the creator of Doug,
Hmm.
and he was awesome. He's a great guy. And then we interviewed Paul Germain, who was one of the creators of Rugrats. And then we also interviewed Vanessa Coffey, who she was kind of the executive producer
Hmm.
of all of the and she should be credited as a co-creator for all the Nicktoons because she really did help. She's the one that said, I want to make cartoons for Nickelodeon, and she went out and found Doug, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy all in like a week. And
Oh
she helped
wow.
all. Yeah, just to show that shows you the amount of talent Vanessa Coffey had. She said, I want to make shows, and they said, fine, go find people. And she found people, and all three of those shows to this very day are huge. So obviously she saw talent and has an ability to find talent that's pretty astounding. But she helped all of those people create their show. For example, Ren and Stimpy, was originally a totally different concept. You'll have to we talk about that in the movie, but it was originally something totally different. And she was the one that helped say, no, 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 let's focus this up and focus on these characters.
Oh wow. Now, where has it premiered? I know you've had a premiere already. I believe it was in New York, correct?
Yeah, that's it. So, and that was really the perfect place for it to premiere at Doc NYC last fall, and it was a really great experience because that's where a lot of those people live. The Nickelodeon executives, they're still in New York, so they were able to come to the premiere. And I got to tell you, Geraldine Laybourne is who the movie's about. So one, the movie's about her career, and also she's an amazing talent. She did Nickelodeon, and then she went on to found the Oxygen Network. You can, if you Google her, like the first image that comes up is her hanging out with Oprah. Like she's a absolute titan of industry. So it's like double scary because it's like, I hope you like it because one, you're super talented and know what's good and what's bad, and also it's about you. And she was there, and also the creator of GAC, he came out And then also Ann Kramer, who was the lady who decided to make the tapes orange, who made the orange tapes. She came out. Jeffrey Darby came out. I mean, it was a pretty awesome. Mitchell Kriegman, the creator of Clarissa Explains It All, he was there. And then as far as actors go, we had Danny Tamborelli and Larissa Olenek. That's
wow.
Little Pete and Alex Mack. They were there. So it was a really magical experience to get to.
Yeah, I see, man. You guys did it big. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When can we expect like a mass world release of it, or?
The end of this year, or we're hoping for this summer. So right now, we're doing things that is kind of out of my wheelhouse of abilities, which is, negotiating the sale of it, who's going to buy it, where it's going to premiere, and all that stuff. I film stuff and edit it. that's what I do. So now those guys, the producers, are working out all those deals, and we're pretty close to signing a deal. So we should have some news very soon about when this thing is gonna premiere. Of course, we're hoping to have it on streaming. That's the main thing. That's everyone's dream. That's I think it'd be a perfect mix, is to get it on a streaming platform. And then of course we will be releasing orange DVDs as well. And then this typical iTunes, Amazon, all of that for sure. So we will, if you follow us on Facebook, we should have some information. Like I said, those guys are working out those deals like right now as we speak. Well, maybe not right now. I don't know when this is going to premiere, but it's Sunday right now. But right around now is when they're ironing out those deals, and so that we'll announce that pretty soon.
For those who are unaware or where to find you or find any information about the Orange Years, can you plug that in?
Yeah, for sure. So you can go to theorangeyears.com. That's our website. And then also, if you just go to Facebook, you can follow us there. If you just search for the Orange Years, we're on Facebook, and we also have an Instagram and Twitter as well that we keep updated when we have new stuff come out.
Okay, well, hey, Scott, man, I appreciate it. I cannot wait to see this documentary. I've been dying to see it. So, man, whenever it gets released, please let me know, and
for sure.
I could get it out there and everything.
Yeah, we thank you so much for your support. We can't wait. It's time. We've sat with this thing for so long. It's like it's time to get it out there and show it to other people and get their opinions and enjoy this awesome experience with everyone else. So thank you.
Yeah, man, you're welcome, and congratulations, man. You impact a lot of people with this, because it's an 80s and 90s Nickelodeon channel. Nickelodeon is still huge to this day.
Sure.
And from the 80s when it first blew up, because to me, all I remember from Nickelodeon at the beginning was you can't do that on television, and then the other shows came later.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, hey, man, again, congratulations, man. I can't wait to get my hands on this documentary or check it digitally, because I'll probably be watching it over and over, man, because I'm also extremely jealous of your work, man.
It was pretty crazy. Like I said, I know you, one of the first people we got to interview was Mark Summers, and that kind of set the stage for everything else. It's like, oh my gosh,
oh wow, double dare.
The first trip to California was crazy. We went out to LA. It was our first, we're all from Texas. We flew out to LA and interviewed, in the course of a couple of days, Kurt Fogg, Mark Summers, Danny Cooksey, Michael Ray Bauer, Venus DeMilo. I mean, it was just like, oh my gosh, all of these people, like not just one show, but like all of them in one weekend. Basically, we were just kind of like overloaded with awesomeness. So you'll definitely see all your favorite people in there for sure.
Okay, man. And again, man, thanks for this interview on the Chameleon Media Podcast, Scott.
Yeah, man.
We wish you guys the best, and I look forward for other projects. Don't stop here at the Orange Year, man. Keep it going.
For sure. Oh, we are. Yeah, we're gonna do some more cool stuff.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye, Will.
All right, guys. So that was my interview with Scott Barber. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I cannot wait to see this documentary, and I love the news that he said it's coming out soon. He said probably by the end of the summer. So I'm really anticipating that.
End of the summer. That's towards my, my birthday is next month, but end of the summer would be what, July?
July, August. Yeah, August is a little more breathing room because I think that's when the kids get back into school, usually around the second or third week of August. So yeah, I would consider August still summer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for it too, man. It's just I'm into things like that, so I'm very excited to check it out.
Well, before we got into the interview, Cody, I asked you to name a under the radar show for you, and what was the one you named again?
It was Invader Zim.
Okay, well, I didn't get a chance to name mine, and for me, it's on Netflix currently. I see people mention it from time to time, but no one ever mentions it with Nickelodeon anymore, and that's Danger Mouse. I
Really?
was Yes, I was obsessed with Danger Mouse back in the day.
I would assume that Danger Mouse was just like Inspector Gadget, where Inspector Gadget wasn't an original Nickelodeon property. It just kind of carried over because
Yeah, it carried over. I think it was
it was Geek. Geek
Yeah.
Incorporated had that. I can see that now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big Danger Mouse fan, and I like to say Danger Mouse was on Nickelodeon before Inspector Gadget. I'm not 100% sure, so I will need to check my facts on that, but I definitely, man, I don't know. I think it's because of the superhero type thing, or like it was a detective, it had crime solving, brainstorming involved into it. It was fun. And back then I didn't know about accents. I didn't know he was in Europe. I didn't know none of that. To me, it was just a cartoon.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember watching Danger Mouse on Nickelodeon. I think that was something I might have just completely ignored altogether because I was a stubborn kid when I watched television back then.
I think it was before your time.
I mean, it was before both of our times because I think Danger Mouse came out in like the late 70s or something like that.
Let me see. I'm gonna pull it out right now. Let's see.
I may be wrong about that. It may have been an 80s property, but I know it wasn't 90s. If anything, they did what they did with Inspector Gadget, and they just recycled, certain shows and gained the rights to air it on the network.
1981, the year I was born.
I was close. Close.
81, and then it says they did a reboot in 2015,
which is also on Netflix. They did the same thing with Inspector Gadget, which I do not recommend watching.
I'm trying to see if I can find something real quick. See when it says it joined Nickelodeon.
A lot of people, actually, I wanted to point out something. A lot of people associate a lot of Nickelodeon, a lot of shows with Nickelodeon, when in actuality, Nickelodeon never really actually carried the show for long. Mm-hmm. Ren and Stimpy went to MTV after a while, the first season. I think a lot of people were complaining about that show being a little too much. But yeah, I remember Ren and Stimpy was on MTV, and they shared a block with Beavis and Butthead.
I'm gonna share just a very quick story with you, Cody. You probably wouldn't care. Nobody might not even care. But Ren and Stimpy, I remember early 90s, like around 92, 93-ish. I remember at this time I was back in the United States, and we were living in Fort Riley, Kansas. And it only came on Sundays. At least where I was at in Kansas, it came on Sundays only. So when it was time to go to church, I would start acting sick. I would like pretend like I don't feel good, or be like, Dad, can I stay home? I would beg and beg and beg that I wouldn't have to go to church so I could watch Ren and Stimpy. I'll never forget that. Never forget that. I used to beg him, but like I would only get away with it maybe once every 2 months. Or like sometimes I would try to pop in the VHS tape in there, the blank one, to record it. So when I got back home, I could watch it. But sometimes like we didn't have any blanks, they were all used up because I was recording Transformers and other TV shows, and it was like the tape was full. So like I would have to record over episodes that I've already watched. Sometimes I'll be mad, like, oh, I haven't watched this episode of such and such. Now I got to record over because I want to watch Ren and Stimpy,
I got a few shows that I need to mention since we're talking about Nickelodeon, since you're talking about under the radar TV shows.
Okay.
That would not really cross people's paths if they were mentioning the word Nickelodeon, because obviously some of the mascots would have been Rugrats, Doug, Rocco, and things like that. There was a show that I used to watch as a kid that I know you probably do not know about. It's called Kablam. Kablam came out in... I'm double checking real quick. 1996, and it lasted well into the early 2000s. Kablam was an interesting show about different segments involving like action figures, which is stupid. It was really, you know how Nickelodeon does some of the stupidest crap.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a segment called Action League Now where it was like a half-naked Barbie. You didn't see anything. You know, it's just like completely torn up.
Yeah.
There's a character called The Flesh, Thunder Girl, Stinky Driver, and then Melt Man with the ability to melt. Some stupid things. I remember loving watching that as well. And then also wanted to bring up Chalk Zone. Do you even know what Chalk Zone is?
No, I never heard of that one.
Chalk Zone is like essentially Harold and the Purple Crown, but with a piece of chalk. Where he could travel, he was able to travel to a world that was completely, you know, chalk related. He would draw onto a chalkboard and he'd be able to teleport to a realm. And he was like the keeper of the magic chalk. But yeah. So yeah, those are some of the other underrated shows I wanted to mention.
What do you think is popular now?
What do I think is popular? Man, look, for 20 years, SpongeBob has been like reigning king of Nickelodeon Network. I hate saying that that's the most popular thing, but that's really all Nickelodeon really has now, you know? Nickelodeon, as of now, mostly relies on its live action sitcoms. Because they don't have a lot of animated shows as far as I know. I'm going back through here. Their latest live action shows are things like Henry Danger, Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Dawn, the Thundermans, things like that, you know? But when I sit there and watch my cousin or something watch Nickelodeon, that's about what he watches. That's what kids watch, you know? It's not necessarily cartoons.
So yeah, Cody, man. Overall, man, what is your feeling about Nickelodeon back then? Let's not get into it too much now, but what is your overall experience? And like, were you more Nickelodeon or more Disney, or more you just didn't care? You were as a kid having fun.
Man, if it was a choice between Nickelodeon and Disney, I would probably lean more towards Nickelodeon. But overall, it was all about Fox Kids with me, which you better be doing. I hope you do a podcast talk about Fox Kids, because I will that. Man, you know that's where Power Rangers was. You know I'm going to talk about that. Speaking of which, Nickelodeon owns Power Rangers right now, so there's a loophole here.
So that's your way to bring it in there, huh?
But we ain't gonna get into it. We'll talk about it when it comes to a Fox Kids segment if Will wants to.
Well, hey, I can find me a loophole too. Who owns Fox now?
Technical difficulties. Will's broken.
But hey, I love Nickelodeon growing up, man. It was fun. They had a lot of stuff for the guys. They had a lot of stuff for the girls. It didn't matter, black or white.
It was a channel block that everybody claimed that was made for kids by kids. Every time I watched it, it was children were nuts about any property, at least up until the early 2000s. I don't see Nickelodeon lasting too long now, but you know, I hope that I can introduce my kids in the near future to some of the things I grew up with, because I thought that was the decade-defining moment for Nickelodeon, was the 90s.
Well, I love that you said that it was for the kids, by the kids, and there really wasn't that many adults on those shows, man. There really wasn't.
Nope. It was, you know, the only adult that I remember was when All That was on. They used to pick on him. He was the he was the producer who would always sit there and say, 5 minutes, everyone, 5 minutes till the show starts. So they'd sit there and make him go to like a random room with a tiger or something and screw. But
oh yeah, man. But you know, I know Nickelodeon is trying to reboot some shows, and they're trying to get some of the fan base back. They're trying to get some of the older generation back in there, and I don't know if it's gonna work though, man. Like to get it back to that completely.
I'm gonna go ahead and say real quick, based on the response that I've gotten on my 90s page, because when I did bring up that All That was getting a reboot, there seems to be a lot of people concerned about there's a lot of nostalgia bias that comes from their concern, but they don't like that they're having to incorporate the newer age stuff. The whole point of them bringing all that back is to still maintain that illusion that it's made for children. They know their main source is going to be those who grew up with all that back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
You can't stop them from having someone like freaking One Direction on there as a musical guest. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there are people upset about that, but I got to say to those of you guys out there that are worried, it's, you know, it's coming back for us, but it's also being introduced to people like Will's children, you know? I mean, I'm sure Will would appreciate his daughters watching something like that and liking it, you know? Because it's something that I grew up with. And Will, you say you didn't really care about all that, did you?
No, I liked it. I just wasn't a hardcore fan. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to watch it.
I think that would be a cool thing for you to introduce your daughters to when it comes to like some of the sitcom things. It's not too adult, but
yeah, I think it would definitely work for them because I'm not letting them watch a Living Color and that type of or Chappelle show. That they're not watching that, you know.
Oh man, you ain't gonna have to sit there and watch somebody making fun of a disabled guy, handyman.
I know, right?
But yeah, I think that, you know, them bringing back this stuff is really cool and all. It just seems to really hit the wrong nerve for a lot of people. Nostalgia is a really big cash cow right now. You see all the stuff they're bringing back. I think it's too late for Nickelodeon. That's why I said they were on life support, is because, you know, they're really trying to dig at the bottom of the barrel right now. You know? Like I said, I don't think Nickelodeon's really going to last as long as it, you know, a lot of people would hope for. I mean, a lot of the children's TV networks have kind of died.
Oh, so, yeah.
Long gone is the Saturday morning cartoon. Farewell.
Oh, yeah. Farewell. But, hey, Cody, man, I appreciate you being on the Chameleon Media podcast, man. Anybody who wants to talk Nickelodeon, you can message Cody. Hey, Cody, where can they find you at, by the way?
You guys can find me on the Growing Up in the 90s page. It's probably the best place to contact me. It's Growing Up in the 90s on Facebook. And then also I have a YouTube channel where I review some nostalgic things. It's called Ranger Collector 62492. So. All
right. So yeah, you guys make sure y'all tune in to Cody. You can chat with him in that Growing Up in the 90s. I see you chat with everybody in there. You leave time to comment back. I know you can't comment on everyone on there, but I see you put in an effort at least, you know, at least interact with the people and stuff, and you comment back to some of them. So that's really cool, man. But hey, again, Cody, I really appreciate having you on here on the Chameleon Media podcast. Anytime you want to come back on here, just let me know, man. You're always welcome.
Fox Kids, don't let anybody else talk about Fox Kids. You put me on here.
Okay, I got you, man.
But all right, thanks for having me, Will.
All right, guys, we are outro, and remember to be kind and rewind those VHS tapes.